So, I guess we're gonna have to talk about it. Larys Strong and his love of feet. If you missed it, and based on social media, I feel like that's impossible. We learned that Larys Strong has set his price for information he gives to Alicent Hightower at not gold, lands, council seats, or anything as normal as that, like the other spy masters have done in the series. No, in exchange for revealing his amazing secrets that he somehow continues to get 100% right all the time, Larys just wants to see some feet, Alicent's feet. And that idea has lit the internet on fire more than Larys's fireflies lighting up Harrenhal. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how I think people are missing the real message of this scene and how truly sinister it is beyond just going lol feet. It's not just about the feet for Larys. Although clearly they are showing that he really does fetishize her feet and finds something about them stimulating. And with the camera shots on his cane and his clubfoot, the show is telling us that this is related to the self-hatred he feels for his clubfoot. Whether this is a good writing choice for how it can run afoul of ableism and poorly thought out tropes, that is certainly a discussion, although not one we're going to have today. What the show is saying is that for Larys, Alicent's purity compared to his own self-loathing is something that he equally admires and enjoys corrupting. What this actually comes down to for Larys is feeling in control and powerful. The reason being that he's not just looking at some sexy souls. He's forcing the most powerful woman in Westeros to degrade herself for him and making her stay in the room while he makes the weirwood eyes bleed. I'm trying not to get this demonetized. That's not the actions of a peeper sneaking around the Red Keep spying on women in secret passages, or, I don't know, the eyes of rats. I think the main reason Larys does it this way is because it makes him feel powerful and in control, specifically over Alicent Hightower, Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. Also, it apparently excites Larys that she hates and is very unhappy with the whole arrangement. Multiple times in this scene, Alicent verbally or with her facial expressions is showing Larys her extreme displeasure. Especially at the end of the scene, she turns away in total disgust. That Alicent is unhappy with this is very much the point of why Larys is putting her through it for information. He's excited by taking this extremely powerful woman, one that he has personally helped put into the position of power and influence that she has so that she's basically running the Seven Kingdoms, and then taking it all away from her by reminding her that her power is dependent on him and that she must humiliate herself for him on demand. And we also know that this isn't actually about the feat in general and more about control in particular, because Larys as a spy master and Lord Confessor and Lord of Harrenhal could obviously see all the feat he wants anywhere, anytime. He's a powerful land-holding lord with wealth and vast political power in a world that caters to people exactly like him. We saw in this episode there was literal child fighting pits. If he wants to, he could set up an entire brothel specifically just for feet, because he can. This is the world he lives in. He also has total control of the crown's dungeons and its many prisoners, with basically no oversight nor restrictions on what he can do to his victims. And on top of that, Larys, with his intense gifts of spying, whether supernatural or not, he sure could find his way into being an effective peeping Tom to find some feet. Larys doesn't have a problem with access to seeing any kind of sexy foot that he would want. Building on the idea of his love of control and humiliation, maybe the only genuine smile we've seen from Lord Strong is when he selected the 3 criminals to be his fireflies and then had their tongues cut out. The wry smile and the way he strokes the side of his face looks like almost pleasure at causing harm to them. And again, when the courtiers of the Red Keep are sent down into his dungeons, Larys is having a great time. He's enthusiastic and animated about how many people he now gets to hurt and feel powerful for doing it. He also has a similar excited look on his face after he killed his family. Okay, Larys. And he seemed to delight in Alicent's horror at what he did. Larys says that they now share a secret. And years later, we can see how he's built on that one secret into blackmailing Alicent to be his plaything. The more that she relies on him, the more he feels he can get her to do whatever he wants. And a little bit at a time, we see him ensnaring Alicent deeper and deeper into his web. Earlier on this season, unnoticed at the time because I don't think foot fetish was on anybody's radar, Alicent took took off her shoes before sitting down to dinner with Larys, and his eyes flicked down to look at them. And by episode 9, what was probably a small strange request from Lord Strong has turned into a horrifying routine. A classic the frog being boiled alive scenario. One small step at a time, Alicent is doing more and more for Larys. And it's really an inversion of power in their arrangement. Alicent is depicted as continually having to do more and more to make Larys happy. He ensnared her early on in the Weirwood scene by giving up everything he knows to her for free, creating a debt of favors back to him. And he has continued this pattern all throughout the years. The scene itself works for the sinking feeling of dread for Alicent and the horror at how obsessed with domination Larys really is. Alicent feels like she can't say no to him. Larys really is the key to her power at court, independent from Otto and Viserys. Otto has his own spy network and largely the support of the small council. Viserys has the ultimate authority as king, and Alicent has the loose cannon and Criston Cole, and then Larys, feeding her information and eliminating her problems. To deny Lord Strong would be to fall back under the heel of her husband or father. Although, as Rhaenys correctly points out, Alicent's reluctant reliance on Larys is not freedom, but building a window in her jail cell. She's not free at all from the power of men in her life, rather she has traded reliance on two of them for another. And let's not forget that Alicent is terrified of Larys and what he can do when motivated. At the smallest of suggestions, he killed Harwin and Lionel. He helpfully offered to take out Lucerys's eye on Driftmark when Crispy Cole wouldn't do it. He rips out the tongues of prisoners at a whim and is the court confessor, also known as the torturer. Larys's savagery knows no bounds so far in the show, despite his sly demeanor, and nobody knows it better than Alicent. He turned on his own blood unprovoked. She really does not want to find out what it's like to be his enemy, and Larys relies on that to keep her trapped in his web and revealing her feet. Also, I want to explore a little bit the choice of the foot fetish itself. It's received a lot of derision as a choice for his character, and although I hope I've shown what the scene is about way more than just admiring 2 feet, I think it's worth exploring where that reaction is coming from. Foot fetishes are known in popular culture as straddling the line between something silly and something gross. I'm sure under this video you'll see jokes about Quentin Tarantino and Rex Ryan, or if they're commenters of culture, maybe go back for F. Scott Fitzgerald. Usually this is used to make fun of the person who feels the attraction to feet, despite the relatively benign nature of it. Unfortunately for Hot D, by choosing this for Larys, they've invited a lot of that humor onto a scene that is supposed to be a serious demonstration of his growing power over Alicent, and by extension, the Red Keep in King's Landing. It's almost arbitrary what he makes Alicent do. The point of the scene is that Alicent has to do whatever Larys wants. One way they could have avoided it is by choosing maybe a more straightforward form of abuse or implied abuse. I will say on that front, I am very happy the show decided not to go that far and tried to find something which would demonstrate Larys's power over Alicent while not being extremely graphic and off-putting. I have little doubt in the original series Alicent's humiliation would have been a lot more explicit and much harder to watch. However, I am not sure they made a good choice knowing how this particular fetish is perceived. For seemingly a lot of fans of House of the Dragon, or at least those commenting on my Larys videos, this particular fascination has popped their feeling of terror that has been built up during the season. A lot of reactions that are like, oh well, he's not actually that scary, he's just one of those strange people who likes feet for some reason, and that's really been his whole thing. And for that reason, I don't think it really landed the way that they wanted. Also, there's been a lot of comments that it somehow disproves my theory about his connection to the old gods, that he has a relatively common sexual interest in feet. And I really want to stress here that this scene is showing off 2 fetishes. Feet, of course, but far more than that, humiliation and degradation. What Larys is doing to Alicent is way more about how powerful it makes him feel, and that it's non-consensual, and that she hates doing it only makes it better for him. That's not so much the psychology of someone who is into a mundane sexual fantasy, but the psychology of a psychopath and serial killer. And to address the three-eyed rat in the room, that Larys has a sexual interest in Alicent is not only normal, but expected for characters with magical powers, especially in the books. Magical powers often leveraged by characters for very dark and also very human desires. Brynden Rivers, the Bloodraven, spent much of his later life trying to find Bran Stark and seemingly battling the White Walkers for the fate of the world. However, when he was younger and still walking around Westeros, when Bloodraven's eye wasn't fixed on Blackfire pretenders, it was instead instead locked onto his lover and half-sister Shiera Seastar. The rivalry that the Blackfire Rebellion grew out of, Brynden Rivers and Aegor Rivers aka Bittersteel, was primarily over both Targaryen bastards trying to get Shiera to marry him. His intense magical powers didn't make Brynden above desire and sexuality, he instead seemingly used his powers to fight against Aegor's advances on Shiera. Brynden also seemed to have enjoyed how he could use his powers to control and make the powerful kind of do whatever he wanted, and that's really not dissimilar from what we've seen from Larys. Another, much less savory example is Varamir Sixskins. Varamir is a powerful skin changer beyond the wall that, despite his slight frame, uses his pack of animals to threaten villages into giving him young girls to have his way with. The magical powers he has allows Varamir to indulge in a power fantasy that is specifically sexual in nature. These are the women that he could not attract, or I guess in the case of wildling steal, that he forces himself on while enjoying their disgust and the anger of their families that they can't stop Varamir because of his pack of animals. And seemingly that's not that far from Larys Strong's motivations with Alicent. Whether magical or not, it is a power fantasy at play. Being a skin changer or green seer largely matches what Larys seems to enjoy doing. He isn't actually touching Alicent during these scenes, he is watching and seemingly gaining a thrill from her realizing it. Power of a green seer is voyeuristic in nature, allowing the seer to spy on scene on almost anyone they want without being detected. But what Larys is doing, stepping out of the shadows to be seen while watching, could almost be seen as a form of exhibitionism that adds a level of excitement to his normal behavior. Certainly Bran Stark enjoyed watching his father and siblings play as children in Winterfell, but he himself is still largely a child. What would an adult, perhaps one who is a psychopath with no moral compass, use those powers to actually watch? These are abilities that exist without any morality attached. They can be used however the person who has them wants. There's also another thing to note with Larys' blackmail of Alicent. Earlier in the episode, Larys delivers Lord Caswell, who is attempting to leave the Red Keep, to Otto Hightower as a traitor. Otto orders Caswell hanged, however talks with Larys briefly afterwards. Otto comments how it has not gone unnoticed that Larys and Alicent spend many hours together for unknown reasons, and Larys does not react well to that, realizing the leverage that Otto now holds over Larys. Certainly Larys will remember how similar rumors were used to bring down his brother Harwin. Although Larys quickly offers his services to Otto, he is clearly unnerved at being under the hand's thumb and wants to get out of it right away. So what does Larys do? He goes right to Alicent and sells her information on Otto's spy network and how to acquire it for her. Of course, we know that Larys is well aware of Mysaria and her spies within the Red Keep. In earlier episodes, he gives Talia suspicious looks and refuses to speak at all until she leaves the room. He has been perfectly happy all these years to allow that network to exist alongside his own until now. That's when he, after getting Alicent's permission as cover, sends his fireflies to light Mysaria's manse on fire, attempting to kill her. The idea being that by killing Mysaria, Larys could take over her spy network as his own. It serves dual purposes. He's not just trying to strengthen his position of court as the primary source of spying, but also to make sure that he is not left vulnerable to them again. That's what spurred his actions and is consistent with the thrill he gets from his abuse of prisoners and Alicent Hightower. As much as he enjoys wielding power and control over his victims, he hates being underneath it. I guess what I'm saying here is, no, Larys as a green seer is not dead because he abuses his power to get Alicent to show off her feet. That is an expression of the feeling of domination that he craves, not the sole focus. If anything, it would only make more sense looking at other examples of magical characters and how they use their powers, like with characters like Varamir and Bloodraven. His extreme need for control and willingness to abuse the power over Alicent is unfortunately par for the course. And Larys is just getting started. Don't make me tap the sign. Larys has always been evil, and it's gonna get so much worse. And I'm sure we're gonna see a lot more feet.